Hi, welcome back to a brand new snippet from Bedagiskwedawajokzeloumsen, A Dragon's Journey. It's a dragon novel. So without further ado, we're going to read the second part of chapter 3 today. And if you check the comments section underneath this video, you'll find a link to the Amazon.com page for the book, and you can purchase it very reasonably in Kindle format or in paperback. So, with no more further ado nor commercial interruption, I know you like that, let's get to it. By the time that Beda's father had left and the dragon child had spent its first day searching for and finding the precious metals that sustained it, Eris and Rucker had hiked more than a few of the trails near their campsite. The next morning, the two humans felt very full of their prowess as hikers and decided to blue blaze the first little side trail that branched off from the main trails that they had been hiking. It would be an adventure within their adventure and something to tell everyone about when they returned safe and sound to the big city. Beda was awake and ready to take the day by the scruff of its gleaming neck and shake it until it said uncle. The dragon fairly hopped to the mouth of its cave and into the clearing in front. Beda looked right and then left, and when it saw nothing but rocks and trees and bushes on either side and a cerulean sky dotted with impossibly white and improbably fluffy clouds floating above its head, it hopped one more time before pushing off and shooting into the thinner and even thinner air. The dragon winged west toward Kokajo and the Canadian border. There were fewer chances of meeting anything human or anything human-made in that direction, and Beda looked forward to swooping down over Moosehead Lake and letting the tips of its toes touch the tops of the tall pines on Sugar Island, Deer Island, and finally Farm Island after the dragon flipped over and over the peak of tiny Mount Kineo that was itself its own island. When humans had finally figured out how to build the machines that enabled them to fly, the dragons disparaged the human efforts, in large part because the humans needed help to move through the air with the skill of a hatchling, yet thought themselves aces. They had, after a too long wait, as far as the dragons were concerned, begun to experiment and master aerobatics, the maneuvers that, for the dragons and some of the human pilots, made flying fun. The loops, rolls, spins, and stalls that evince the expertise of a human pilot are the playground games of the dragon young. Beda had learned these maneuvers quickly and was known among dragonkind as one of the most proficient of the young dragons at these aerial movements. Dragons did not compete among themselves to show their expertise. They flew as they flew and shared their knowledge and expertise with any wormling they met. What helped one helped all. It was the dragon way. Beda flew first as fast as it could over Telos Lake and Chamberlain Lake, and then so close to the waves on Quackamuck Lake that the wind from its passing pushed the water the dragon passed over up into a rooster tail that splashed the lake's shores and soaked the pine trees that bordered the water. The dragon had to pull up to glide over a little ridge of bumpy hills that thought of themselves as mountain peaks. Beda did not disabuse them of this silly notion. That would have been cruel. And then, almost before Beda realized it, the Canadian border loomed directly ahead with its huddled petit municipalités, a veritable geographical abecedarium of little towns named after oddly named saints, crowding the invisible line that separates the two nations. The dragon turned back in the direction from which it had come with just the slightest flick of the tip of its tail. Beda flew over Kokajo on the way back to its cave. As the dragon passed over the cell tower at the edge of the little town, it received a call. Beda was more than a little surprised that its aunt, Huangse, yellow deity of the four faces, wanted to talk. "Dear Aunt Huangse," Beda began, "it is an unexpected pleasure to hear your voice." "Noble nephew of the first rank, Prince of Maine," she replied, "with your most honorable parent, highest lord of North America. Having traveled west to bask in the golden sun, we, your Chinese cousins, beg a boon of thee." "Glorious princess of the Imperium of the Three Sovereigns," Beda bowed its head in the veneration of its relative even as it flew. "Your slightest whim is my obligation." "Well spoken, dearest nephew," its aunt whispered as softly as silk lying on a wing and as powerfully as the rumblings of the earth as it shudders in a trembler. "It is our wish that you leave the desolate forests of your Maine and fly to join us here in our home in Changzhou, our new Shambhala. The hordes of the humans have become so annoying that we were forced to move from our ancient home in the valley of the Yellow River to escape their bothersome habits. We would happily welcome you to our home to honor you and allow you to meet and join with your Eastern family. It would be my honor to join you, Radiant One. Beta was so excited by his aunt's request that it had to slow its speech in order to communicate with its aunt at all. I will leave as soon as I can. Thank you for your supreme kindness, generous gleam of the golden sun. We will eagerly await your arrival, my dearest wormling, its aunt said, and then the connection ended. Beta flew straight up into the heavens, away from the ground, stalling and then pulling a twisting, turning whifferdille as the young ecstatic dragon plummeted back toward the earth. And then Beta cranked out a flawless Cuban 8 that ended with the dragon racing parallel to the ground, aimed like a rocket for its home. Beta hurtled toward its home and horde and crested the little rise just before the open glade in front of the mouth of its cave, and pulled up short, skidding to a landing behind a stand of eastern white pines that had ringed the cavern's opening for the past 300 years. 100-foot-tall pines branches were dense with needles. Their trunks were 4 feet in diameter, and this arboreal camouflage and the shadows it threw hid the dragon as effectively as if it had been covered in the clouds that hid it as it flew through the sky.